Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the ongoing Afghan peace process. Now there are a couple of developments. Zalmay Khalilzad is President Roy to Afghanistan, in fact visited Pakistan, met the Chief of Army Staff, General Bajwa, held a couple of very important discussions, and along with him was General Miller also. Other than that, now there is a very interesting and developing story, and that is because the Secretary of State has in fact very categorically sent a letter to the President of Afghanistan, Mr. Ashraf Ghani, saying that there should be some sort of a mechanism where both the parties should be there, and now he needs to put in more effort. Now that do more mantra is towards the government of Afghanistan. And then obviously they have also involved Turkey, and they've asked them to hold a meeting where the intra-Afghan dialogue should also proceed. That is another development. As far as India is concerned, we have also learned that around 2 days ago, a call was made by Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad to Mr. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister, and they also discussed issues related to Afghan peace process. Now, obviously, there are a lot of stakeholders, a lot is going on, but where is it heading? Now, that is a $1,000,000 question. To talk about this, we have with us in our studio, let me introduce you to our panelists. On my right is Adnan Qaiser. He's a defense analyst and research associate, Conference of Defense Institute, Ottawa, Canada. Dr. Saab is also a South Asian expert in Canada. Dr. Saab, thank you so much for your presence, sir. And we have with us Dr. Professor Zafar Nawaz Jaspal Saab. Needs no introduction. Is an expert on foreign affairs and international relations. Dr. Saab, thank you so much for your time as well. And we'll be talking to Hassan Khan Saab over the phone, and he's also an expert on Afghan affairs. Now, let me put this first question to you, Dr. Saab. Saab, now, when we talk about this development, a letter has been written to the Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, in which the Secretary of State, or rather the new Secretary of State, has very categorically mentioned that, A, as far as the Taliban are concerned, they should follow certain guidelines. We absolutely want a peace agreement for at least 90 days. Primarily, they're concerned about the spring offensive. And secondly, he's also asked, perhaps a couple of analysts believe that he has not asked, he has in fact told and pressurized Ashraf Ghani to sort out issues and come up with some sort of a viable solution, and primarily talking about a transitional government. So your take on that.
Thank you very much, Faisal. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a delight to be at your show, and Assalamu alaikum to all your viewers. Coming to you, before coming to your point, allow me to say that, I had written a comprehensive paper last year in April on Afghanistan. It had been published by South Asia Journal in the United States in a 5-part series, as well as by Geopolitics in a 7-part series. So in the introductory premise, I had noted that, that the peace deal between United States and Taliban had been signed on a rare leap day, and its chances of success are equally rare and remote. Mm-hmm. So, two things after that, have dawned on United States. First of all, it came as a late realization on the part of United States that there is no military solution to Afghanistan conundrum. This is one. When they realized it, they still had put all their eggs in the Afghan government's basket. They wanted to carry on their Bonn agreement, which they had set up in 2001 when this war started. So they really didn't want to ditch the Afghan government of President Ashraf Ghani. However, immediately they started a realization had dawned on them that the Afghan government had been a little less than honest in undertaking this peace agreement when we saw that President Ashraf Ghani declined to release the
Perhaps they have some very legitimate concerns.
Apart from that,
They're trying to avoid a civil war-like situation, once the withdrawal takes place.
No, the first thing is when a peace agreement has been put in place after a lot of deliberation on part of the United States as well as by the Taliban, then the Afghan government should honor the pledges which have been made. And if you recall, the former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had showed his annoyance at this delay in the peace process, as well as, and he had threatened to cut down the aid and the assistance which had been pledged by the United States. So
you think Ashraf Ghani's government deliberately lingered on and delayed this peace process?
Exactly.
Just because they wanted that the next government should come in and let's see what happens, because they were not totally agreeing with what Trump administration was asking them to do.
I'm afraid, Faisal, that is not true, because you see, President Ashraf Ghani, allow me to say, they were major stakeholders. And right from the beginning, when this Operation Afghan War started, if you recall, President Musharraf had very categorically told them that, by giving a lot of leverage to the former Northern Alliance, you're committing a mistake. And that later on realized that, that Taliban were not acknowledged as a legitimate political force. They were just categorized as a ragtag militia, which will be overcome by the NATO forces, which unfortunately couldn't. So the point was this, that a lot of onus had been given to, and a lot of leverage had been given to President Ashraf Ghani's government, and they didn't. They acted as spoilers because their interest was not in this Afghan peace process. And now it has been realized, and this letter which has been written by the Secretary of State Blinken, it clearly showed their frustration, the United States frustration, as well as their warning to the Afghan government that let's sit down, put your house together, and let's sort out this Afghan peace process. Because if you see, the United States is once again talking about conducting a UN international conference. And I was at this platform 2 years ago, and I shared with your viewers a joke about this Afghan peace process. And it used to be said that what remains aground while traveling around the world? Afghan peace process. So we saw all the London conferences, the Moscow format, the Raqqa, and
Beijing,
everything.
Islamabad, Murray, you name it.
Murray, everything. And now you see, so nothing transpired, and now they're just reinforcing failure, as well as they're going for another peace talk, just to involve all the stakeholders, which eventually will not result into any concrete action until and unless the Loya Jirga carries out a reckoning and sorts out this Afghan.
Now, it depends, I mean, how effective Loya Jirga is now, how effective the approach of the elders is. So, Taliban becoming a part of the solution or becoming a part of the government, do you think it's possible to mix oil and water? It's just like that, sir. Taliban working with the Ghani government or Abdullah for that matter. Do you think this equation makes some sense to you?
No, it would not. It would never. First of all, try to understand the Afghan culture. The most intrinsic part of Afghan culture is revenge, is vengeance. So first of all, the atrocities which former Northern Alliance had committed on the Taliban have not been forgotten. And whatever Taliban did to them, they haven't forgotten it either. Of course, during the civil war which took place during the 1990s and followed by the first.
Ahmad Shah Massoud's brother was in Pakistan about a few weeks ago.
That's true, but the point which I am trying to make is that there are real and present danger for a revival of a civil war, which I call 2.0, because there are some old scores which need to be settled. So this is one. Secondly, to understand that despite of all this democratic norms, which I totally agree and I support, but we have to be realistic about the ground realities in Afghanistan. Afghanistan has an orthodox society, and they're more religious oriented people, mostly in the rural areas. So apart from women empowerment and women education and girls education, that remains a rhetoric. So basically, it's now the Taliban who are going to decide the future contours of the Afghan government. Now, I'm trying to tell you, you're saying that there might be a situation that Afghan Ghani government might be involved with the Taliban, and some kind of a coalition government would come up.
Does it make sense? Is it possible?
I don't see it.
Dr. Saab,
So instability. Remember, what I see that Afghanistan is going to stay unstable in the near future because of two factors. First of all, which you have not considered, is the factor of Daesh or the Islamic State Khorasan. They have become a major stakeholders in carrying out the instability in Afghanistan. So whatever, whenever the peace process ends are going to be met, the Daesh acts as a spoiler, and they go back to square one, carrying out some kind of a terrorist attack, which is blamed on either side or somehow. So that increases the violence. Now, if I see Secretary Blinken's letter, it signifies only one thing. One, they have talked about the reduction of violence for 90 days. Why? During those 90 days, both sides pull off from each other, disengage. Afghan government on one side, as well as Taliban on the other side, and forget about the Daesh in between, so that United States gets a face saving to pull out its troops, because it's a zero-sum game anymore in Afghanistan. So they would like to have a face-saving exit, and that's why they are trying to convince Pakistani government, the military leadership as well, to give them that kind of a face-saving, reduce violence from both sides. They have warned the Afghan government as well, and the Taliban requested in Doha, and I believe that there's some kind of a consensus would come up, but again, we have to keep in mind about the Daesh role. Again, as Professor Saab has said about the middle class, which has emerged during all these 20, 30 years, they have a significant role, and I agree with them. And Taliban are cognizant about that. If you see, they were initially reluctant to even talk to the women participants of the.
They have changed over a period of time as well.
That is a big. But then now they have reconciled.
They talk about women's rights now.
They do.
I mean,
because
this is one of the major agenda. But sir, you talked about the non-state actors. You talked about Daesh, IS factor, Sharia Afridi group, Hizbul Ahrar, Hizbul Tahrir. You have Saifullah group. You name it, and they're there.
TTP.
What about those, sir?
That again, they are not the blood brothers.
There are certain groups which are funded, financed, and trained by the Indians to operate against Pakistan, against our sovereignty, to destabilize Pakistan.
Faisal,
what about them, sir?
Faisal,
it is such a complex.
And that the former, allow me to say, former U.S. Secretary, I'm forgetting his name, Chuck Hagel, I guess, he had publicly stated, in a university in America, I remember, in 2011, that India had been creating.
But sir, when he said that, he was not the Secretary of State. Because once he became the Secretary of State, he changed his statement.
But there is a realization. There is a realization, and if you read this book, My Enemy's Enemy, which has been recently last year or last to last year, it had been published. My Enemy's Enemy. It clearly all the Indians' involvement in carrying out instability in Pakistan's tribal areas, they had been elaborated.
All right. Quick, 30 seconds.
Again, I would say that Afghanistan used to be called as the Pakistan's fifth province. So there is a history behind this. This
God says not our fifth province.
I don't want to say this, but again, so that it demonstrates that Pakistan's involvement, it has strong linkages, historical, cultural, religious linkages with the Pashtuns. So you cannot deny this fact. So Pakistan has a role, and Pakistan, whatever policy which has been has followed since 2001, that has come fruitful. and that is going to further benefit Pakistan in the near future.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. Nasser,
So
thank you
great.
very much, Professor Saab. And that's all we have for this hour. Inshallah, I'll see you again. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.